Hello and welcome to another great episode of the Optimize Show. I am Dave Mammano, your host. Today on the show, very special show. We have a longtime friend, someone I've known for quite a while, and he is now the mayor of Rochester, New York, Mayor Malik Evans. Welcome to the Optimize Show.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Good to be here.
Thanks for making the time. I know you're a busy man, and we're trying to hook this up, and I'm really glad we're able to do it.
That's right, me too. I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we have your son in the audience today, so excited about that.
That's
too.
right.
So, yeah.
That's right.
Very cool. So I just want to, right now, as I said, you are the mayor of Rochester. Congratulations. I'm personally very excited about that because I know you're a great man of character and integrity, and you've got great plans for our city. So I feel like our city's in very good hands. So I'm excited about that.
Great.
But to back up, I mean, like I said, I was trying to list all your great accomplishments at your pretty still young age, we'll say, right?
Relatively.
I mean, you were at ESL for a long time as the financial wellness manager. You were on the Board of Education, and you were I believe you're the president for 6 years, and the youngest ever elected to the board, the Rochester Board of Education, right? So congratulations. Rochester City Council, Rochester Area Community Foundation. These are all board positions, right? Catholic Family Center, Hope Hall. Those are the major ones. There's a lot more. So you packed in a lot.
Yeah, I packed in a lot. I packed in a lot in years. I mean, I always tell people, my first board service when I was like 14 years old. I started extremely young as it relates to leadership, because I think that, before ESL, I was at M&T Bank, vice president over at M&T. 20 years in financial services before, moving into, government full-time as mayor for this first 4-year term. But in all of that, I always tried to make sure that there was a lot of community involvement that happened. Because to whom much is given, much is expected. And I believe that a lot of the skills that you have in your professional life, you can also use those skills in a community setting. So,
absolutely.
It was just something that was important to do. So it ended up adding to a long list and a long resume of things that I've been involved in over the years. I was the youngest person elected to the school board, but now, this past year, a 19-year-old, Isaiah Santiago, maybe you could have him on. He got elected, so he's the youngest.
He's the youngest.
So now I'm just one of the youngest that was ever.
The second youngest.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Local guy, went to U of R and got your master's at Nazareth, right? And you went to high school here.
High school, that's where I first met you.
That's where we met.
That's where I first met you. You had that magazine. And
I had Next Step Magazine.
Next Step Magazine. Wilson Magnet High School is where I went.
Okay.
That's where I probably met you. I think it was 30 years ago.
I came to speak. I mean, we didn't go to high school together.
No, you're a little older than me.
Just a touch.
You're a little bit older.
But I came because my magazine was for high school students.
That's right.
I came to your high school, and you remember that.
I remember that, yeah.
And you still succeeded despite my lessons from that day.
That's right. We still march forward. And then like a lot of young people, I said, hey, I'll leave Rochester. I'll go here. I'll go somewhere else. But in actuality, I ended up going to the University of Rochester. And then staying around. I immediately got into the financial services industry, and Rochester was the place that I decided to make my home, and I'm glad I did.
Well, we are too. Glad you stayed. And then we re-met years later when we started Rock City Coalition.
Rock City Coalition.
That's how we got connected again, right?
But again, another organization that was Rock City Coalition. The whole idea of that was to get young people involved in their community. If you remember, young professionals in particular, and we started that. And I love seeing where some of those young people have moved on. But we understood even back then that in order for us to have a strong, vibrant city, we needed to make sure that we had young professionals that would say, you know what, I want to make Rochester a home, and that even though might be young, you still can make an impact. I think oftentimes people think that I need to wait until I'm 40 or 50 or 60 to get involved in my community and try to make a change. And what we did during Rock City Coalition, if I remember, was we said, no, you can get involved and be involved even as a young professional. And that's why Rock City Coalition was something I was very excited about. I forgot about that as a matter of fact.
That
was a great organization.
That was tremendous. And you speaking about some people that were on that original board with us, Senator Jeremy Cooney.
Jeremy Cooney was on Rock City Coalition with us. He's now a New York State Senator. He went on to become an attorney. He went to law school and and became an attorney. So a lot of folks went through Rock City Coalition at the time when we first started that organization.
Right. Yep. Good organization. So, you know, talking to you, I mean, age 14, you already have plans, right? Like you're going to get involved. Did you ever think like I'm going to be mayor someday, or I'm going to like do something great like this someday?
See, so I always thought that I would go into government at some point, but I did banking for 20 years. But I wanted to be a newscaster when I was a kid. So, and I was just telling this story to a group of young people earlier today. I used to watch 60 Minutes with my dad. I would, when I was in high school, we had a communication studio, so I did communications. I interned at our ABC affiliate in both high school as well in college. So my goal was to go and be a media person. I wanted to do interviews like this. This is what I thought I would end up doing. But I also, in college, worked for Rochester City Council, interned for Mayor Bill Johnson at the time. So I was interested in a lot of different things, so I didn't know which way the road would take. But I was also interested in business. Yeah. So I ended up going the business track by working in banking, and then, you know, dabbled a little bit by running for the school board and then city council. So at some point, did I think that I would run for office? Absolutely, I thought I would at some point. But I thought that I would have a lot more gray hair, and I would be a lot older when I would go and pursue it. So you just never know. I always say that you never know the journey you're going to take in life, but you always have to make sure that you're going to be prepared. And each of the things that I have done in my life have prepared me for this position as mayor. My experience in the business community, my experience in working with a multitude of boards, my experience in working with multitudes of people, my experience in mediating disputes. I was a peer mediator when I was in junior high school. Wow. And boy, do I still use that skill today, even more so than I thought I ever would. I used it when I was on the school board. I used it when I was on council. I use it now as mayor. So although you may not know what your career trajectory may be, the skills and jobs that you take as you move forward are things that you can use in those experiences for sure.
That's fantastic. How old were you when you became mayor?
When I got elected mayor, I was 41.
Wow.
41.
You're the youngest mayor?
No.
No,
there's been much younger mayors than me.
Here in Rochester?
Yeah. I'm old. I'm old compared. Yeah, there's been much younger. As much as I like to think I'm young now, I'm now middle-aged.
You are very.
I won't have any titles of being the youngest of anything anymore.
Wise beyond your years. We'll leave it at that. So. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the journey. What a great journey. And you're right, like every step along the way has prepared you for where you are today.
That's right.
Right, the good times, the bad times, everywhere in between, here you are helping Rochester. So let's talk about Rochester. So I am a lifelong Rochesterian. I love Rochester. I was born in the city, grew up on the west side when I was young, and then grew up on the east side. So I'm familiar with all of Rochester. Love it. You know, I'm always bragging about Rochester. Right. I'm not the guy that gets on the airplane and when we talk about Rochester, I'm not the guy that talks about the snow.
Good, but we celebrate the snow.
We could say good things, but then I also talk about all the other amazing things going on as well. You know, how smart our community is for a city our size, right? I mean, it's like we have all the patents that we get. There's so many things to brag about, right? So, but like any city, you know, there's good, bad, and ugly right now, right? But you know, certainly there's some challenges. But you're doing a great job to address and mitigate the challenges that, frankly, all of our cities are having in today's world. But you're really focusing on bringing Rochester to the next level. Right. And there's some great things going on with that. I'd love to hear some of the positive things that you and your team are working on.
For us, we want Rochester to be taken to the next level because we think that it is deserving of that. And you're right. Sometimes as Rochesterians, we can be very pessimistic. We sometimes talk about the things that we don't have and we don't build upon the assets that we have. Mm-hmm. I think Rochester is poised for growth and to move to the next level. The landscape of Rochester is literally changing in the corner of right in between our eyes. As we look, Rochester right now won't even look the same in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. And that's because we're looking at the landscape and changing the landscape. I mean, you can look at Main and Clinton downtown. Right now, someone heard me say that the corner of Main and Clinton is an abomination that hurts the eyes, and that's true, but we're changing that. So starting next year, you're gonna see Harper's Corner on the corner of Main and Clinton revitalizing that entire corner going all the way west. That's gonna change us. We're gonna have the only probably one of 3 state parks in all of New York State, the High Falls State Park that's happening there. We have the Interloop North, which we had the Interloop East, which was about 8 acres. The Interloop North is gonna be almost 20 acres of developable land that is gonna stitch back neighborhoods that were torn apart by a moat of a highway that destroyed neighborhoods. That's gonna completely transform that. Our Aqueduct Reimagine project, which is making us embrace the water. for the first time, we are seeing water as an economic development tool to be able to take our city and grow it. For the first time ever, we have more than 10,000 people living downtown. When you have that critical mass of people living in a place, that brings in all of the ancillary services that you need to be able to help a city start to grow. So we're poised for growth to really look at Rochester and look at it through a lens that's going to be totally different. We are seeing businesses locate in our downtown corridor, in our innovation zone, where that has not happened before. Right downtown in the Sibley's building in NextCore, they are running out of space because they have so many startup businesses that are now housed there. And in a place like Sibley's, you have Ultrafill that is going to have almost 300 people come here. GreenSpark is locating their headquarters downtown. Constellations Brands is locating their headquarters downtown. So all of these things are things that are going to help Rochester be poised for growth. And then we're also focused on things like our neighborhoods that are extremely important to us. Our Buy the Block program, where for the first time in years, we're building brand new houses in one of our most challenged zip codes in the 14605 zip code. So all these things are setting Rochester up to be a trajectory that will growth. We're saying, hey, we're one of the few cities that has a lake, a river, a waterfall, and a canal, and we're embracing that. And we're using that as a tool to be able to grow our city and celebrate our water resources.
Yeah, well, and that's so exciting. And you do see a lot of cities, like Chicago, et cetera, that have really embraced, rivers and lakes and all that stuff. And Rochester never really did that.
We never did. We're late to the party.
Yeah,
we're late to the party, and it's time for us to say that we need to do that. And that's what our Rock the Riverway initiative is all about. If you go right now on North Star Commons, you can go when it's warm. We have our new boat, the Rivery, or the Rivery, I think we're calling that boat, and you can get on there from North Star Commons, right in Cornhill, and travel that river from downtown Rochester all the way out to Brockport. You wouldn't have been able to do that 10 years ago.
Do you have to go over High Falls?
No, we'll avoid High Falls. Right. But I christened that boat. I christened that boat by banging the champagne there a couple of months ago, this past summer, and it was.
That's awesome.
It's a great testament to the celebration of the river and the water that we want to make sure that we embrace here in Rochester.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people complain about, like we're talking about the weather, but and people, Bob Duffy, we all say this, like people move to Rochester and like, oh, why do I have to move to Rochester for work, whatever, and then they stay, they don't want to leave,
right?
Because they realize, there's some snow for 2 or 3 months now.
That's right.
But we don't get the hurricanes, the earthquakes, all this other stuff.
No, we have climate refugees. I met someone the other day. I said, why did you choose Rochester? They were coming from Colorado. They said I was tired of wildfires. Someone else I met from Arizona. They said we were tired of droughts. They said water is plentiful. Rochester has the best water in New York State. We win contests all the time for our water.
Yeah.
They do taste tests in cups like this, and then you taste it, and they say, where is this from? This might be from City A, City B, and Rochester always wins because of our great supply of water. But we've also embraced winter. Yeah. The city is a big supporter of Rock Holiday Village. That takes place during the winter. Where else can you go and skate on ice, put on headphones, and have an ugly disco, a silent disco, right on the ice? We're doing that, and you can ice skate free at Manhattan Square Park in the center of downtown for the entire month of December. Go in an igloo, have a cocktail with your friends and family. You can't do that in a lot of places. So although we have our cold weather, we have our cloudy skies, and it might snow, we're saying that we're now starting to embrace the winter that we have here, because all that snow is it's going to melt. It's just fresh water.
That's right. Yeah. And speaking of fresh water, which they look at the next 10, 20, 100 years, people are nervous that fresh water supply is running out.
Yeah, and people go to war over water.
I know. And here we are right in the middle of Great Lakes, Finger Lakes. Like, we've got the most fresh water in the whole world.
We have some of the best fresh water in the world, and it's a resource that we really take for granted because we don't realize it until you go to Las Vegas, where they pay you not to water your lawn, or you go to Arizona, or you go look at a country where they are fighting over water because they have such severe drought. We are blessed in this community to be able to have such of those natural resources, but we've never fully embraced it, and it's about time that we are finally starting to do that.
I love that. Another great thing about Rochester, for a city our size, is the education environment. right? I know people that are not from Rochester, but they've done business with people in Rochester. And I've heard it time and time again that they say something like, we punch above our weight when it comes to education. Like, we're just a wicked smart community. Yeah, right. And I love that. And, U of R, RIT, St. John Fisher, all the other colleges in this area. And I think a lot of that stems from what were the big three, Codex, Xerox, Bosch, and Loma, et cetera. There was just a lot of smart people working there, engineers, et cetera, right?
Rochester has a lot of brain power. And you heard the stat, we say it all the time. I brag about it all the time. Patents per capita, Rochester has a lot more. There's a reason why we were designated as a tech hub. Yes, we did it because we wanted to be cooperative with Syracuse and Buffalo. I love Syracuse and Buffalo. But when you look at the brain power in Rochester, it really is unmatched.
Yeah.
And the spinoffs that came out of companies like Xerox, Kodak, and Bosch and Lomb. And although they may not be what they were before, when we were a company town, we now have become a town of companies. We have become a town of companies because of all of that brain power that spun off from those organizations. Yeah. And a lot of those companies were smaller companies, and they've become bigger companies. So the success of us, for example, getting that National Tech Hub designation, which is a huge deal for our community, that is going to bring all types of transformational projects to Rochester, is a result of that brain power and leveraging the great institutions of higher learning that we have here in Rochester. The key is that we want to say to these young folks that are coming here to RIT, to U of R, to Nazareth, to St. John Fisher, we want to do a better job of making sure that we retain them, that we get them to stay and continue to grow their lives here in Rochester.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you make a good point too. So a lot of cities that have lost big companies, or those companies decreased in size, the city also massively suffered. Right. A lot of cities like that. In Rochester, so Kodak, Xerox, Bosch, and Lomb, et cetera, they're not the companies they used to be, but it really didn't affect Rochester too bad. I mean, we continued with low unemployment and continued with a good economy. I mean, it seems like
we've been able to be resilient in that point. Yeah. What we have to do in Rochester is, because we have some serious challenges in the city, is make sure that our workforce development programs are impacting everyone in all the zip codes. Yeah. So of the 5 top zip codes in New York State, we have 3 of the poorest zip codes. So how do you make sure that you go into those areas where you have challenges with poverty and make sure that they have access to a lot of the workforce development, those jobs of the futures that are there, because the jobs are there, but the skill set might not be there. So how do you get people to scale up on their skills, match them with those jobs that are out there and those jobs that are going to be the jobs of the future, to make sure that you can then move those people up to the middle class. Yeah. And that's the challenge that we have. But the opportunity that we have is that a lot of those jobs are here, and they're created in Rochester, or they're being created. There are jobs being created in Rochester that we don't even know the names of them yet, because we have people working in the innovation space, and a lot of those jobs are happening right downtown, in neighborhoods. Companies like Vigneri Chocolate. I mean, this is a place that supplies the chocolate for, if you go into Wegmans and get a Wegmans candy bar, that's supplied by Vigneri Chocolate right on East Main Street in the city of Rochester. Yeah, big lots. So we have such innovative companies here.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the greater Rochester area, which may or may not, be in the city. There's so much opportunity for people living in the city to work at companies in the greater Rochester area. For instance, where we become the optics hub, our whole region, right?
That's right.
For really the world.
We are, and you know that I think it's something like 50 or 60% of anybody with a PhD optics that has a PhD in optics, they got it from the University of Rochester. Right. Yeah. So optics is we just cut the ribbon on a company called Sun Density, which is an optics company, and that was right downtown. Yeah. So people sometimes say, oh, what happened to optics or photonics? Is it still going on? You just don't hear about it. Right. But these companies have popped up all over. They're showing great leadership in our community. They hire hundreds of thousands of people are working in the optics space within the city of Rochester. You don't hear about it because they're busy working, but we are really a hub there. That tech designation, I think, is going to help us even further. Yeah. And even Micron, even though that's in Syracuse, it's still going to have a great benefit for Rochester.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had mentioned some of the challenges, which every city has. How are you as the mayor, counting, kind of turning those challenges into opportunities? And what are some of the major challenges that you're up against?
One of the challenges that we had, we saw when we first took office, we saw Rochester when we came in 2022. And this was across the country during the pandemic. You saw levels of violence rise. So what I did was I set up the Office of Financial Empowerment. We worked with all of our federal, state, and local partners, and we said we're going to attack this problem in 3 tiers, three buckets: prevention, intervention, and suppression. Suppression is we bring in all of our law enforcement partners to stamp out the most violent, dangerous criminals, because what we find is that it's not everybody, it's just a small subset of people that are wreaking havoc. You zero in on those people and try to deal with them, and then that brings down the gun violence and other things. So we did that from a suppression standpoint. From a prevention standpoint, we said, how can we set up an office to make sure that people know that there's access to opportunity, and that will make them less likely to get involved in a violent crime? Because if you have to get up to go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and you got to be there by 9, you don't have time to get in trouble. You're too busy working. So how do you make sure you set up a workforce program, that you set up a program that provides opportunity for people, or let folks know the opportunities that are there, and that's the prevention side. And then the intervention side is, how do we expand things like our gun-involved violence elimination program, where we can say to a person, we know what you're doing, we see you. But you can either go one way, you can go positively, or you can go negatively. We got resources to help you go positively. We suggest you come over here.
Right.
So prevention, intervention, and suppression have been the 3 key ingredients that we looked at as it related to public safety, and we're starting to see results as a result of that. So we saw a decrease in violence last year. We saw a further decrease again this year, and we're hoping that same trend line will go into the future. Obviously, in terms of media, anytime there's any violence in the city, you're going to see it on the news, because that's just the nature of the business, and I get it.
Yeah.
But you have to balance that by also making sure that you get the good news out, because hope is also extremely important.
Yeah.
Because hope and opportunity is what gives people the confidence to know that positive things are happening and not all things are doom and gloom. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. You have to be in this job, and I think that has really helped us. And I think it will help our city as we continue to go into the future.
Yep. So that's the major challenge, is the gun violence. And just
violence,
crime
but
in
also
general.
opioids. The opioid epidemic is a challenge in all communities across the country. And in fact, the opioid epidemic is a greater challenge than I would even say the guns.
Yeah.
We have seen numbers, and this is a countywide, we have seen numbers of fatal overdoses across our country skyrocket to levels that we have not seen. At the height of the crack epidemic in the 90s, maybe 3,000 people would have died nationwide. The opioid epidemic in our country right now is now 6 figures in terms of deaths.
Wow.
So that dwarfs gun violence. That dwarfs everything else, and in many times why it's sometimes even more dangerous is because it's silent. It's something that you don't hear about.
Right.
When you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people die over a weekend because they had fentanyl, died of acute fentanyl poisoning, that makes it tough, because it's just not something that we talk about, but we need to, because it's a silent challenge. I believe in communities, urban, rural, suburban, all across the country, and it's something that we have to deal with. So we have a very aggressive opioid approach that we're working on with Monroe County and the city to try to change those numbers, because we're losing too many lives to that as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it doesn't pick a zip code. It's all over the place, right?
It doesn't pick a zip code.
Yeah.
And many people travel from one zip code to go to another zip code to get those items. It used to be years ago, someone might be involved in an illegal drug and they had a better chance of surviving. But because fentanyl has become so dangerous now, we're seeing numbers that alarm me and alarm the communities across the country. And we have to try to find a way to stem those numbers, because we're losing a lot of young people unnecessarily because of the fentanyl crisis that we have in our country. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So now we call this the Optimize Show, because we want to learn how leaders like you are optimizing. And I want to talk, I mean, you're always talking about your team, right? That you don't do it alone. You got to
Right.
How do you there's a lot of moving parts running a city.
Right.
Tons. Tons. I don't know how you keep it
20
together.
different departments. Thousands of employees.
Right. Yeah. And there's always, your phone's you probably got 20 texts to answer after this interview,
right?
right?
I'm sure I do.
So the whack-a-mole.
That's right.
And
That's right.
So how do you optimize your time and your talent, and also the people around you to help just keep the show on the road?
Well, one of the ways I optimize my talent is making sure that you have a very, very important routine. Now, you understand that the routine is going to get disrupted. It is.
Right.
But by having that routine, it helps you to optimize yourself, right? But also hiring good people. Hiring good people and not needing to micromanage them. If I have to micromanage people, then you cannot work for me.
Right.
Because these are people who are subject matter experts in their fields. I'm not an attorney, but I have a law firm. Our corporation counsel's office probably has dozens of attorneys that are there.
Yeah.
Our Department of Environmental Services, if it was a separate company, it probably would be the 4th or 5th largest company in Rochester. This is filled with engineers, street engineers, sanitation, water, our neighborhood and business development team, police department, fire department. You have to hire good people to run each one of these organizations. And I tell them, this is your organization that you have to run. I'm ultimately accountable for it all, but I can't go put out a fire. I can't go, I can't go and pick up the trash or build a new road. I can't do those things, but I can hire good people to make sure that those things happen. So you have to make sure that you have a mission, vision, and values that aligns with caring about people and showing people that you care about the work that they do. So one of our core values at the city, and everyone has a little card on my senior management team, it has our mission, it has our vision, and it has our values. And they carry that around. And one of the reasons why they carry that around is because I want them to be reminded that everything that we do cannot be done without good people. And my success is dependent upon the strength of my team and the strength of the employees that we have currently at the City of Rochester. That's the way I've always lived my life. No matter if I was a small branch manager managing 10 people, or a multi-site manager managing 25 people, or now the mayor of the City of Rochester being over 5,000 people, when you put full and part-time and summer all together, you have to make sure that you have lieutenants that are good stewards of management, and you have to also make sure that the people who are working for you know that you have their best interest at heart, and that everything that you do and everything that I say is reflected in the work that they do. And I think when they know that, they may say, wait a minute, the mayor wants to increase economic opportunity. How am I doing that if I work in sanitation? Or how am I doing that if I'm one of the engineers designing a street? Getting them to understand that they have a role to play in the vision that we have set forth for the city. And when people understand that, I think that's how you can start to have that success.
That's great. So it sounds like you have hire the best, hire A players, and act the trust but verify.
You absolutely have to verify. I absolutely believe in trusting but verify. I think you just can't have a completely hands-off approach, but you have to hire the good people to be able to do that, and then you verify. And then you also say, if something's not working, you just don't keep going with it. You gotta recalibrate and change it immediately. You gotta move fast to change it. You just can't do that. And then the other thing is this, being honest when something doesn't work. And I do that. Hey, we tried this, it didn't work. Right. Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's great. I heard a great saying a couple of years ago for leaders: delegate, but don't abdicate.
That's right.
And then inspect what you expect.
That's right.
You always
always have to inspect what you expect, and it's not that you. But you don't want to say, I'm not responsible for any of it. But at the same time, some of the worst leaders are micromanagers. And if you are a micromanager, that means that you're also missing the bigger picture, because you're worrying about what color you should put on the assessment notice. I mean, that's not. You got better things you got to worry about. It's the reason why I'm always wearing a white shirt. I don't want to spend 5 hours trying to match the tie to the shirt. Right. You want to be able to think about important stuff. And leaders need to be able to do that. And if you're down in the weeds, you're not thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's great. Great. John Maxwell says that stuff all the time. He's a great leadership.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, the best.
One of my favorites.
Last question here. What is in the future for Malik Evans? Where do you see yourself 5-10 years? Can you
I don't know, and I've learned never to try to figure that out, because as the son of a preacher, you just don't know. Whatever the higher power has planned for me will be what I will do. But I will tell you what I will be doing. I'll be cheering on my kids. I think that they will be much more successful than I am, and I think that they will exceed my expectations. So in the future, I look forward to seeing them graduate from high school, go on and be productive members of society. And in 5 or 10 years, regardless of whatever it is I decide to do, I will be continuing to give back to Rochester. I will be continuing to help our fellow citizens in some way, regardless of what that may be it me going back to the private sector or still being in the public sector. That's probably what I'll be doing. But in terms of doing what, I learned never to predict, because if you would have told me 4 years ago that I'd be sitting here talking about being mayor of Rochester, I would have said, no way. And if you would have told me 20 years ago or even 25 years ago, when I still wanted to be a newscaster, I would have said no way. So I learned not to predict the future. I believe in providence, but I believe that if you do all the right things, you'll end up at a place that you will be happy in, and you will be able to reach your full potential.
Yep. Do the right things and trust the journey.
Trust the journey. That's right.
I love it. So if people watching this are saying like, you know what, I love this guy, I want to reach out to the mayor, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is to call the mayor's office, say, hey, I want to talk to the mayor. I got some ideas for him. We love that. I love ideas. I love information.
Getting involved.
They want to get involved.
There's always a way to get involved. Right?
Oh yeah, I'll put them on a commission. I'll put them on the there's tons of boards that I could put people on. I'll put them on the preservation board or the zoning board or the.
Do they have to live in the city?
It depends on the board. It depends on the board. So some boards you have to, some boards you don't have to.
But they can get involved if
they can get involved. Clean sweep is always one of the easiest ways to get involved. We always have thousands of people every April or May, whatever month that is, for clean sweep. So there are a multitude of ways to get involved with the city of Rochester, and we want to be able to encourage people to do so, because I always say this, and my staff gets tired of it. It's not me, it's we.
Yeah.
And when I say we, it is not just the folks at City Hall, it's we as in the broader Rochester community. Yeah. Because Rochester is the heartbeat, so be you live in the city or you live in our suburbs, you need to understand that you have a connection to Rochester, because as Rochester goes, the region goes. And as Rochester goes positive, that's positive for the region. If Rochester is not positive, it won't be positive for the region. We are the heartbeat of the region, and we need to make sure that we go on an upward trajectory, and that means taking Rochester to the next level, but you can't do that without its people. Right. And the most positive, powerful thing we have in our community is its people.
Yeah, I love it. Mayor Malik Evans, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate the time. I look forward to watching you since high school continue to grow.
Right. And even the gray hair that you're seeing.
Well, that's what politics will do to you, right?
Yes, it does.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching another great episode of The Optimized Show. Every Wednesday morning, we have a new episode. Appreciate you. Make sure to have a great day and stay awesome.